"Let's get started," she said as she folded the laundry. There was no urgency, no emotion, just a line, like she was checking something off her list. "I think you'd be happier without me." That's how Pamela put it. No question, no hesitation, just a flat statement. I was standing in the doorway, watching her sort socks on the bed. She didn't even look up when she said it. It was as if she'd been practicing, rehearsing this moment in front of a mirror, and now it was finally coming out. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the grocery bag I had just brought in, setting it down slowly. "Is that what you want?" I asked. She paused for just a second, then continued folding, not giving me much more than a brief, indifferent glance. "I don't know what I want, but this isn't working." She walked past me, laundry basket in hand, avoiding eye contact, moving like we were nothing more than housemates divvying up chores, not a couple on the brink of falling apart. I followed her into the hallway. "Are we not even going to talk about this?" I asked. She stopped halfway up the stairs, turning to face me, her tone sharp. "There's nothing to talk about. I've felt this way for a long time. I just didn't know how to say it until now." I didn't follow her up the stairs. I stood there in the hallway for what felt like an eternity, staring at the ceiling. There was no anger, not yet, but something felt empty, hollow. She had said it, her truth, or at least her version of it. And the worst part was, it didn't even seem like it hurt her to say it. Pamela had already left emotionally. I was just the last one to know. Looking back, the signs had been there for a while, but they hadn't come in loud, explosive bursts. They were quieter, more subtle, gradual shifts that I didn't even notice at first. Pamela used to text me during work. Small check-ins like, "How's everything going? Want me to grab dinner?" But one day those texts stopped. She said she was slammed at work, dealing with deadlines, client meetings, new projects. I believed her. Then the waiting up stopped too. I'd come home after late shifts at the finance firm to a dark house. No plate left out for me. No TV on. Just her already asleep, her back turned to me. One night, I asked her about the growing distance between us while we ate dinner. "Pamela, is something going on?" I asked, but she kept slicing her salmon like I hadn't spoken. "Nothing's going on, Matthew. I'm just tired." "You've been tired for months," I said, frustrated. She looked up at me, calm but cold. "And you've been gone for months. So maybe we're both tired." I didn't push it. I took the hit and moved on. But in the weeks that followed, I tried harder. I cooked more, took care of the dry cleaning, even booked us a weekend getaway at a cabin by the lake. But she claimed she had work to catch up on. Instead, she spent the weekend out with people I didn't know. She said they were co-workers. I never saw any proof. She'd come home with perfume I didn't recognize and smiles that faded as soon as she stepped through the door. The distance didn't feel like a break anymore. It felt like a shift, like she was silently rewriting the terms of our marriage without telling me. One night, I went to kiss her goodnight, and she turned her head. No words, no explanation. She just turned away. I stayed up, sitting in the living room for hours, watching the clock tick past midnight. She had already emotionally checked out, and I was just the last one to catch on. A week after the conversation about the laundry, I discovered the first real crack. It was a Tuesday night, and Pamela said she had a work dinner with a client from Toronto. She left the house wearing a black blouse she hadn't worn in years, and heels I didn't even know she still owned. She didn't wear her wedding ring. At 10:46 p.m., a message popped up on the iPad she'd left on the kitchen counter. She was still logged into her messages. I wasn't snooping. It just appeared, sitting there in front of me. "Derek." The last message read, "Tonight was good. You always leave me wanting more." With no emojis, no hearts, just words. Confident and familiar. I tapped on the thread. The messages weren't overtly graphic, just short, playful exchanges. Mentions of jokes I didn't understand. Conversations about weekends. Nothing physical. But it didn't need to be. I already knew. When Pamela came home at midnight, I was sitting at the dining table, waiting. She was surprised, but not guilty, just taken off guard. "Yeah, I'm up," I said. "How was dinner?" "Long." she replied, walking to the sink and filling a glass with water. Who's Derek? I asked. She paused for a moment, then went stiff, her shoulders locking. He's a co-worker from the Toronto office. Seems like more than that. I don't know what you're implying, Matthew, she said, turning her back to me. I stayed calm, focused. I'm not implying anything. I read your messages. She set the glass down, arms crossed. It wasn't physical, if that's what you're thinking. That's not the part that bothers me. I said, my voice even. You wanted to be seen, heard, desired. You just stopped wanting it from me. She didn't deny it, didn't apologize. She simply said, you don't get to judge me. You checked out first. That's when I knew. She didn't regret the messages. She regretted getting caught. And I wasn't going to fix something she didn't think was broken. After that night, I didn't confront her again. I didn't ask about Derek or demand any sort of explanation or apology. I just started pulling back, quietly, methodically. I stopped picking up groceries on the way home, stopped folding her laundry in with mine, stopped pretending like we were still a team. I let everything sit, the dishes in the sink, the mail on the counter, the silence between us. At first, she didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she thought it was just another one of those cold spells couples go through. But on the 5th day, she asked, did you forget to pay the gas bill? No, I said, looking up for my coffee. I paid mine. A week later, she texted from work. Did you drop off the dry cleaning? I didn't reply. When I got home that evening, she was standing in the hallway, arms crossed. You ignoring me now? No, I said, walking past her, just letting you handle your part. Something about that bothered her more than yelling ever would have. The next morning, she wore makeup for a meeting, her hair curled and red lipstick on. It wasn't for me. That night, she told me she was grabbing drinks with Lena from HR, but her phone buzzed twice while she was standing there, as she got ready. I noticed Derek's name pop up on her phone twice, but I didn't say anything. Instead, I turned off the porch light after she left and locked the door behind her. When she came home around midnight, she knocked and I opened the door slowly. She looked at me, waiting for me to say something. Forget your keys? I asked. She just stared at me, her eyes sharp. You're being a real jerk lately. I shrugged. I learned from the best. She didn't respond, just walked past me like I was nothing. But I could feel it. She was walking on unstable ground now. She thought I would stay while she wandered, but now she wasn't so sure what I'd do next. I waited until everything was ready. The separate bank account, the lease for the new apartment in my name, the movers on standby. I didn't raise my voice, didn't tip my hand. I just got everything lined up. Then I called Pamela's cousin, Alina. She and I had always been cordial, but once at a family barbecue, she had looked at me across the grill and said, Pamela loves fireworks, but she marries the fuse. I hadn't understood at the time, but now I did. Alina picked up after the second ring. Matthew, I need a favor. Quiet one. She didn't hesitate. We met at a coffee shop 2 nights later. I showed her the texts, the screenshots, the calendar events between Pamela and Derek that didn't match her stories. Alina took a slow breath. She really did it, huh? I nodded. She says it wasn't physical with Derek, but it never starts that way. Alina looked at me. I'm not asking you to pick a side. I just want her to lose her confidence. How? Bring up Derek. Nothing heavy. Just enough to make her wonder how you know his name. She raised an eyebrow. You want me to rattle her? Yes. I can do that, she smirked. You always is quiet when you're planning a hit. I didn't smile. I'm not hitting anything. I'm just turning the lights on. Pamela changed over the next 48 hours. She came home earlier, asked if I wanted takeout, sat next to me on the couch instead of on the other end. She laughed a little too loud at something that wasn't funny. I stayed silent, watching. 2 nights later, she asked, Do you think we're okay? I just said, You tell me. She didn't respond, but her eyes stayed on me longer than they had in months. For the first time, I saw her as someone who realized she was losing me, and I wasn't doing anything to stop it. She overcorrected, started cooking real dinners again, bought my favorite beer, played music while I was in the shower. One night, she asked if I wanted to take a weekend trip, just the two of us, to reconnect. I told her I had meetings. "Since when do you work weekends?" she asked. "Since I stopped trying to keep this marriage on life support." She didn't push, but I could see the panic creeping behind her eyes. The next Tuesday, I moved all my personal files from our shared desktop, transferred all our joint subscriptions, canceled the spare credit card. Everything was now under my name or removed from hers. She still hadn't noticed. The joint account drained, the utilities switched. The life she thought we shared was already gone. On Saturday morning, she hovered in the kitchen while I made coffee. "Did you change the Netflix password?" she asked. "Yeah." She waited, expecting more. I sipped my coffee. "You said you wanted space." She flinched slightly, then tried to smile. "I didn't mean it like that." "I know exactly how you meant it, Pamela. You just didn't expect me to believe you." That night, her phone stayed face up on the table. She made a show of ignoring it, even letting it ring once without checking. I didn't ask who it was. I already knew. The next morning, she lingered in bed, wearing one of my old shirts. She waited for me to say something. Anything. I got dressed in silence. And when I reached the door, she called after me, "Are you really done with this?" I looked at her, calm and steady. "I was done the night you started needing someone else to feel seen." Then I closed the door, and for the first time, she didn't follow. I left on a Wednesday while she was at work. I packed my things, clothes, laptop, documents, everything into the trunk of my car. I drove across town and unlocked the door to a short-term rental I'd signed for. Nothing fancy, just quiet. Mine. On the kitchen counter at the house, I left a letter. "Pamela, you were right. You're better off on your own. So am I. The utilities are covered until the 30th. Everything else has been separated. The lease is now in my name only. No fights. No drama. No more silence from either of us. My keys are in the bowl by the door. Matthew." I didn't wait for a reaction. I turned off my phone for the rest of the day. When I turned it back on that night, there were 3 missed calls. Then 5. Then a message. "Where are you?" I didn't reply. She didn't call the next day or the one after. But on Saturday, Alina texted me. She came to Mom's, crying, totally wrecked. I didn't ask for details. I just said, "Thanks." The next evening, a new message came from Pamela. "I know I messed up. Please just talk to me. We can fix this." There was a time I would have clung to that. Now it felt like someone reaching for a railing after the train had already left. She hadn't noticed when I was slipping away. Now that I was gone, she was finally listening to the silence. A week later, I agreed to meet her. Neutral ground, a diner off 12th Street. She was already there when I arrived, hands wrapped around a mug, hair pulled back, wearing the navy sweater I bought her last winter. "Thanks for coming," she said. I nodded, didn't sit yet. She looked up at me, her eyes red. "You didn't even say goodbye." "I did," I said. "You just didn't read it until I was gone." She bit her lip. "I don't know what to say, except I'm sorry. I thought I wanted something else. I thought I'd find clarity out there. Instead, I just lost everything." "Clarity comes late for some people," I said, sliding into the booth. There was a long silence between us, the kind that used to mean war. Now it just meant the end was close. "I ended things with Derek," she said quietly. I nodded. "I figured. He didn't mean anything. He meant enough that you were willing to risk everything." Her voice cracked. "I never wanted to lose you. You didn't lose me, Pamela. You gave me up. There's a difference." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "It's a letter. I wrote it last night, just in case you ever want to know how I got here." I left my own envelope on the table, and she looked at it like it might explode. "Divorce?" she asked. I nodded once. She didn't cry. Not right away. She just stared at the paper like she could rewind something by holding it long enough. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. Is there any version of this where we come back from it? I stood up. There might have been, but I was the only one fighting for it. Now I've learned how to fight for myself. Her eyes welled up. I reached for my coat. Take care of yourself, I said calmly. You'll need to. And I walked out. The diner door closed behind me. Quiet. Final. She had opened with the line, "You'd be happier without me." And now, finally, I was